And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to do a program dedicated to probably my most favorite food, and that's cabbage. I adore cabbage in every way you can imagine. I like it raw, I like it cooked, I like it every which way. So we're going to make 3 dishes featuring cabbage. We're going to use both red cabbage and the traditional green cabbage. The first thing we're going to do is a main dish, and it's beef and cabbage casserole. It's very easy and just couldn't be simpler to make, but it's healthy and it's delicious. So in this pan, I have about 1 pound of very lean ground round. Now, if you don't have lean beef, you're going to need to drain it. But I bought very, very lean meat, so I shouldn't need to drain it. I'm just going to brown that off. And to go in there, we're going to put an onion. And I've got 1 onion. I'm just using a yellow onion, but you could use a red onion if you have it, whatever you have on hand. And we're gonna dice this and then add it to the ground beef. I may have told you before, I don't remember if I did or didn't, but if I had to choose one food to live on the rest of my life, it would be stuffed cabbage. I've never made that on here, and I need to do that with you. Cabbage rolls, some of you know it as cabbage rolls, but it's stuffed cabbage. This dish kind of has the same flavors as that, except it doesn't have any rice in it. And we'll do my stuffed cabbage one day. But that's my favorite food because it features cabbage. And might get so tickled at me. My mama got so tickled at me when she would make it. She's, of course, the first one that made it. And then I learned to make it. And when I do, I always pile on top of it lots of extra chopped up cabbage. And then just as soon as that cabbage starts wilting a little bit, I get a dish of the cabbage. And I would eat the cabbage. And I would eat, once the cabbage rolls were done, I eat so much that I can't hold another morsel. And then I wait about 30 minutes till a little bit digests, and then I go back for more. And I really do eat until I'm miserable with that. I don't do that with very many foods, but that is one that, oh my goodness, I love it because it features cabbage. So the dishes that I'm making today are all featuring that one vegetable, just done 3 ways. Next to that, we're going to add some celery, because this is probably my second favorite vegetable. I love celery. We're going to add some to it. Now, some people take the strings off the back of your celery. I don't. They don't bother me. Just cut it into little bites. And I don't know of a food group that smells better, maybe bacon, cooking, than celery, onions, and ground beef. When you saute those together, the smell or the aroma is just fabulous. I love it. We're just going to saute those until the vegetables are tender and the beef is browned. Just going to kind of let that go a little bit. I'm going to turn it up just a hair. Now I'm doing this in a deep pot, but then at the end, we're going to transfer it to a baking dish because we're going to top this with breadcrumbs and bake it. So be sure you use a pot that's pretty deep because we're going to be adding a lot of things to it. Now, here's a head of just green cabbage. You could use, if you wanted to use like the Napa cabbage that they have in the stores, you could use that. You could use the red cabbage if you wanted to. Red cabbage does have a little bit of a different flavor, but it's good. Now, just cut your cabbage in half. This is the way I core cabbage. See this part, for those of you that don't cook much, maybe don't know, this is called the core of the cabbage. You want to get rid of that out of your dish, so I cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again, and then I take my wedge, and the core starts right there, and I just kind of cut at a triangle alongside that. And what this does is will allow the leaves to separate. Now I'm going to shred this. You could use your food processor if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to cut it into, you see how I'm taking a knife and about, 1/4-inch shreds is how I'm doing it. But if you wanted to cut it into wider pieces, you could. Basically, you cut it how you want it. Then when I get to this part, I turn it over and just continue to cut. Now, cabbage is a member of what's called cruciferous vegetables, which has broccoli and Brussels sprouts and turnips. All of that are members of the cruciferous family of vegetables. It's truly one of the healthiest things you can eat. It's full of fiber, full of vitamins, full of minerals, extremely good for you. And we're going to add tomatoes to it, which is another one of those things that's a powerhouse vegetable. We're going to add that to it, and together they just make a wonderful combination of vitamins and minerals for you. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm not sure how much I'm going to need. Now I know this looks like a lot, but this is going to wilt down once I put it in the dish. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it a little bit. And then if I think I need some more, I can always just shred up some more. Let's stir our beef. I just want this to cook until the beef is no longer red. Now this was lean ground round. Again, if you're going to use something with a little more fat content, then you will need to drain off the excess drippings, but I don't think I'm going to need to. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. Just going to let that brown, and you can see it's almost there. Just a minute more. And then what I'm going to do is add my tomatoes. Now, if you have your home canned tomatoes, and we've canned tomatoes together on this program with my mom, that's probably, I think, the #1 watched program that I have had is the canning of tomatoes. If you have your home canned, absolutely use those. You can't beat home canned tomatoes, but most of us don't have that. So I bought a large can and a small can of just diced tomatoes. Nothing special, just the diced. If you want to buy the whole tomatoes, you can, and then cut them up, that's fine. We're going to add these to this meat mixture. And stir that together. And that is the beef mixture for our casserole. I'm just going to let this simmer for just a couple of minutes. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we are going to assemble our casserole, get that in the oven, and then we're going to start on another cabbage dish, red cabbage with apple and bacon. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now we're going to assemble our casserole. I have my baking dish here, and I'm going to put a layer of the meat, just using a ladle because I want those juices too. Now remember, the cabbage is going to exude a whole lot of juice. So just put a layer down there in the bottom, and then sprinkle over some cabbage. You can make this ahead. Totally have it cooked ahead if you want to. Can't have too much of that for me. Then we're going to put another layer of our tomatoes over that. Now, I like to have mine where the top is the cabbage. That way the cabbage on top, matter of fact, I'm just going to pour the rest of this, gets kind of roasted. And the cabbage on the bottom stays nice and soft. And that's just the way I like to do it. But if you want to do yours where the top layer is your tomatoes, then go for it. That's fine. Now I'm going to put the rest of my cabbage on top. Get my little bench scraper. Okay, I think that's good. Now, for the topping, I just had some little pieces of an Italian loaf that's left. If you don't have that, sliced bread is fine, but you want some soft breadcrumbs, so some kind of fresh bread, and you want to pulse those to turn them into breadcrumbs. Just real quickly. Let them go for just a second more. And that's good. Just some fresh breadcrumbs is what you want. Not the prepackaged up kind. Those are sort of stale. And just sprinkle that over top. And then because I like pepper so much, I want to top it with a little bit of pepper. Always fresh ground. And then just to help it to brown a little bit, I'm going to drizzle it with just a touch of olive oil, or you could use vegetable oil or canola oil. 375-degree oven. Let me get that breadcrumb off of there. And we're going to put this in to bake. And let that go for about 45 minutes. If you wanted to, you could do that dish in your crock pot. Just layer it just like you would have in the baking dish. Leave off the breadcrumbs. I wouldn't put the breadcrumbs, but you could layer that in your crock pot. Put it on low, let it go all day long. And when you come home from work or dinner or whatever you know, wherever you are, your dinner's done. You could do that in the crock pot. And if you wanted to, you could cook it in the crock pot and then put the breadcrumbs on in the last, 5 minutes, put it under a broiler just to kind of brown up those breadcrumbs. It would be delicious that way. Now, we are going to make another one of my favorite dishes. Excuse me, my throat's giving me a fit today. And that is sauteed red cabbage with bacon and apple. Now, I do another dish like this with red cabbage that I use caraway seed on, but this is a different apple-y kind of take on it. Well, let me get the bacon started. You want about, 4 or 5 slices of bacon. In my world, you can't have too much bacon. We love bacon. You could use turkey bacon if you wanted to. I'm gonna go ahead, I've got my skillet preheating, and I'm just gonna slice this into pieces. You could use turkey bacon. You would need to add a little oil if you're going to use turkey bacon because it's very lean. And then I'm going to add that to the pan and just let that brown up while we're finishing prepping our dishes. Put this in the sink, wash my hands. If you've never tried fresh cabbage, there's a world of difference. It just is so good. And it's really inexpensive. They're like, usually if you can find, this is like I don't know, 69 cents a pound. I've gotten cabbage for like 29 cents a pound before. Usually this is about 49 cents a pound. So a head of cabbage doesn't cost but just a couple of dollars, and it's extremely healthy. Let's let our bacon go for just a minute. Now we're going to use a red head of cabbage. And it's going to be the same thing. I had a nibble. I cut that out because I love red cabbage. I love it in a salad. I didn't get that quite even. I didn't get any of the core, so I'm going to have to do that one separate. And I'm going to do it much like I did the other one. I'm going to kind of put it in finer shreds. When I get to the fatter part, I think I'll cut it to where it's smaller pieces. But you could cut it into, you know, just chunk-sized pieces if you wanted to. It's up to you. Cabbage is delicious grilled. I don't know if you know that or not, but you can make sure you leave the wedge or the core intact and put it on your grill. The wedges, it's wonderful. Wonderful cooked like that. Let me get that core out. You can eat that, by the way. It is perfectly safe to eat. It's just a little tougher. I have cleaned these. I took a couple of the outer leaves off and washed my cabbage. Sometimes in the grocery store you can find pre-shredded cabbage. You can use that, like a coleslaw mix. That's perfectly fine too, if you don't want to do this. Let's see, let's get this going. This is just going to be the basis of our cabbage dish. We, of course, are going to leave that in there. We're also going to use, in this dish, a Granny Smith apple, one Granny Smith apple. And you want to cut it, just like I do the cabbage. I cut it, and then I cut it in half again. And I like a little paring knife to get the core out of an apple. I leave the peel on because there's a lot of vitamins and minerals and fiber in that peel. I don't peel my apples all of the time, unless I'm cooking for a child that, you know, needs it peeled. Oh, that bacon smells good. Cut out the core. Now, I like a Granny Smith apple for this because it's a little bit tart. And I'm going to cut it into slices and then into little cubes. This will it adds a tart flavor and a touch of a sweet flavor. It's just really good. I'm just going to keep chopping this apple and browning that bacon. And when I finish, or when we come back, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to finish this dish and we're going to start on the Italian cabbage. I'll be back in just a minute. Now, our bacon is crisp. I'm leaving the bacon and the drippings, and we're going to add our cabbage and our apple. A lot of stuff going in here. And I know this looks like a lot of cabbage, but it is going to wilt down. Kind of like spinach. Maybe not quite as dramatic of a difference as spinach, but it does wilt quite a bit because the water will come out. It has a lot of water content. We're going to add all that to it. We're going to add some salt and some pepper. Smells so good. And then I'm going to add some apple cider vinegar. Now, if you don't have any apple cider vinegar, you could use some apple juice. Really, any kind of vinegar. About 1/4 cup or so. Stir that together. And just get everything coated. Turn it down to low and let it simmer. for about, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, depending on how soft you like your cabbage. If you like your cabbage a little softer, let it go a little longer. I personally like my cabbage with just a tiny bit of firmness to it. That looks so good. Oh, tastes even better. Now I'm going to cover that, turn it to low, and let it simmer. Now let's get started on our last cabbage dish, which is our Italian cabbage. I have a pot here, and I'm just going to use the remaining cabbage that I have from the other dishes, or just a head of green cabbage or red cabbage, but we're doing Italian cabbage, so it's got red in it. You know, the Italian flag has red. So let's just cut this one into chunks. And this, by the way, all this comes apart. These separate out. A lot of people, that watch this show really are beginners at cooking, so they need to know. And a lot of you have been cooking for quite a while. We're going to add our cabbage as we cut it to our pot. You want about a head of cabbage total. It can be all green, it can be all red, it can be a combination. It could be Napa cabbage. Napa cabbage is a little bit milder of a flavor. You just want it into chunks, and that's what I'm going to do this. Or if you want to do it in the little shreds, you can. Either way will work. Just want to get it in the pot. This is very easy. This is a great side dish. And again, if you wanted to put all this in a crock pot in the morning, it'll be ready for you when you get home. Just good little chunks. Now, to that, we are going to add some tomatoes. Cabbage and tomatoes are just a marriage made in heaven. We're going to add a couple of cans of stewed tomatoes. Now, this has got a little bit of green pepper and some celery and some spices in it. You buy it right where you get the regular tomatoes, just the stewed version. I washed my lemon and I did take the sticker off there. And 1 lemon because we want to have that juice. And where's my little lemon reamer? There we go. Turn it upside down like that if you have one of these. I love this little tool. And the juice of 1 lemon. If you don't have a lemon, you could add a little bit of maybe some white vinegar, something to add a little tart. That's kind of the whole point. 1 bay leaf, some caraway seeds, some salt, and some pepper. And for the moment, that's it. We're just going to stir that together. Let me get a spoon here. Now remember, that cabbage is going to exude some liquid, so it's okay. Turn it down to low, cover it, and let it simmer. Okay, now we are back, and our beef and cabbage casserole is done. I want you to see the top of it, how it's just brown, and the little tiny tops of the cabbage have kind of caramelized. That makes it wonderful. That needs to cool for about 10 minutes or so before you start dishing it out. It's very, very hot. And here is our delicious bacon and apple red cabbage. This would be so good served alongside like a pork roast or a grilled hamburger steak or anything like that. And then here is our Italian cabbage. Now remember, you need to remove that bay leaf and discard that. That is, it won't hurt you if you eat it, but it's gonna taste pretty tough. So I would take that out and just discard it. And here's our wonderful Italian cabbage with our stewed tomatoes and our caraway. And we are going to top that with a little bit of Parmesan cheese. So the Italian cabbage will get some Parmesan cheese just drizzled over top before you serve. So there you go. There are 3 easy, quick recipes using my favorite vegetable, cabbage. This is our beef and cabbage casserole that we baked in the oven. We layered it. Remember, you could totally do this one in the crock pot and leave off the breadcrumbs, or the last, few minutes of the cooking time. Take your crock pot insert out carefully, sprinkle it with breadcrumbs, and put it under the broiler. Here's our delicious red cabbage with the Granny Smith apple and bacon. And then our delicious Italian cabbage with stewed tomatoes and caraway, drizzled with some, or not drizzled, but sprinkled with some Parmesan cheese before you serve. There are 3 easy, healthy, delicious recipes using cabbage. Try one, try them all, and let me know what you think, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.